Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Velero community meeting and open discussion. Today is October 6th, 2020, and per usual, we're going to start up with some status updates. First up, we have Dave.
Hey, so look at the end-to-end testing, and one of the frameworks we may use is this ginkgo. So anyway, I've been trying to figure that out and put together an actual end-to-end test in that, and that's pretty much been it for this. Did some sessions at VMworld and a session with the Kubernetes VMware users group last week.
Nice. Any questions, comments for Dave? Anything you need this week? Anything you need help with this week?
No, I'm good.
All right. Then we'll move over to Bridget.
Hi, everyone. I've just posted, I've got a couple of PRs which are pretty small, but things that I'd like to get reviewed. One of them is an improvement to the to our release scripts. So I was just thinking that we might have a 1.5.2 release coming up, and so I'd like to get that reviewed and get that in. The other thing is I've just, it was a bit of a quiet week last week, so I've just been working on some bugs. One of them was to do with if you try to delete a backup where the associated cloud resources have already been deleted, the backup deletion fails, and then the custom resource gets stuck in the deleting phase and then doesn't, and this is due to during the processing of DeleteItemActions, it tries to download the tarball. So if the tarball is missing, it kind of gets stuck there. So this, because this is a new feature in 1.5, this has been a regression of sorts in terms of like behavior. So it's just kind of, I've taken a look at it, started to work on a fix for it, but then kind of got stuck where I realized that in the case where the cloud resources are missing, what should the behavior be if there are delete item actions for that plugin to be processed, and how do we communicate that to users? So I'd like some input on that bug. Then the other one is being unable to install Velero using go-get. I looked into this. I thought it was going to require some fixes in one of the projects that we depend on, the external-snapshotter from CSI project. But they've made some changes to their project, so we can fix this for ours, but it will require upgrading the Kubernetes modules that we depend on to 0.19. And I've just kind of wanted to get a sense from folks on like what's the impact of upgrading these libraries. So yeah, so that's it. So if anyone has any input on those, Nolan, I know you probably, I've requested your help on the DeleteItemActions issue. So whether we talk about it now or talk about it offline after the meeting, that would be super helpful. And that's it for me. Oh, we also have the next installment of the office hours coming up this week. Thanks to those who came along during the last one. It was a really great introduction, and it was nice to see folks there. So hopefully see some more of you this Thursday.
Yeah, for 2980, I'll have to look at it and review exactly what the impact is. I briefly read over your comment about what's going on, but I'll need to review it a little bit more in depth. And for upgrading to Kubernetes 0.19 with go-get, I think we're going to want to do this at some point. I don't know what's been put into Kubernetes 0.19 yet, or the Kubernetes 1.19, which is a 0.19 Go module, because of versioning stuff with Go modules. I don't know what's been in there. So we'd have to take a look, but yeah, I don't know. The impact here, I think, will be small. The biggest one we've had in recent times has been the 118 update, because that changed method signatures.
Yeah, everything needed a context.
Yeah, I don't think 019 did as much, but I don't know that for sure. So I think that's going to require going and reading their change log, and I just haven't taken the time to do that.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I'll hold off on making any further changes and probably open up another issue for general upgrade to 0.19, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think we're gonna want to keep pretty close to what Kubernetes is doing. I know there's a fix for some CRD marshaling stuff that would be really nice, that we've got a bunch of workarounds spread throughout the Velero code base that will be in Kubernetes 120. That would be nice to get that, since it was a one-line fix in Kubernetes, but it's like dozens of lines in Velero. But yeah, in generally we try to keep cadence with it. I just don't know that we've had a ton of people using Go Get with Velero.
Hey, just a question here. How does this impact anyone that wants to build it from source or contribute to the code base?
So building from source should still work. I mean, the building from source and everything works fine. It's when you run it via Go Get, it has a hard time doing the module lookup. But if you've got a checkout and you run our make or our make commands, those work just fine. So it's just when you go through Go Get right now.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. This worked for our releases. It's just if you try to install it through Go Get, I think there's a different code path that it uses to read the Go modules or something. I'm not exactly sure what logic is different between the two, but I can definitely reproduce this. And it's basically, if we follow the chain, we have to update the external snapshotter that we depend on, but they use Kubernetes 0.19. So we need to update ours.
All right. Any other questions or comments for Bridget? All right. Nolan.
So last week I was pretty much on semi-PTO. I was around for some of my pre-scheduled meetings, but I wasn't really in the office otherwise. Something that our team had discussed doing was coming back when everyone was available and doing a big support-a-thon and bug smash session. So basically looking through all the open support issues and bugs and working on those to get that lowered. There's no timeline for exactly what stuff will be put in what versions, but we're basically looking to reduce the number of open issues when we get back. This is not a commitment, but just a guess. I think that will probably be a mix of 1.5, 1.5.2 and 1.6.0, where those fixes will land, but I don't know yet. We also owe the 1.6.0 milestones or the list that we were going to commit to. But the number one thing our team is intending to deliver is the end-to-end testing, so that we have solid testing before we're doing big changes in Velero. I think those are the two things I have, and I just wanted to share that Ashish and Carly are out this week due to family health issues. So I don't think I have a whole lot of other updates.
All right. Any questions, comments for Nolan? Do you need anything this week, Nolan? Any blockers?
I think this week I'm going to be catching up on reviews that I didn't really get to last week. So I don't think I need a whole lot. The main ask I have is the discussion topic, which I don't think I see Scott on the call. But yeah, I think the main thing this week will be catching up on reviews and support issues. I think that's going to be the main theme.
All right. Sounds good. And I forgot to ask you as well, Bridget, is there anything you need to, this week? Anything specific?
No, I think the only things I kind of need I've already outlined, and hopefully I'll chat with Nolan after the call as well, and we can talk about some of those in a bit more depth.
All right. Sounds good. So we do have a discussion topic. Do you want to wait until Scott is on, Nolan, or do you want to talk about this now?
We can wait until Scott's on. This is basically, for folks that don't know, this is a design topic that Scott brought to us. We've actually been in discussion on this for a few months. And this is a change to the restore item action plugins that allows the plugins to wait until the additional items are actually restored and then proceeds. So the reasoning here was in OpenShift, there were some dependent resources. I think it was image streams and image stream tags for them. But the idea was you have some sort of resource. Its plugin creates additional items, and it wants those dependents to be fully restored and ready to go before it can come back and resume. So Scott's proposal is making a change to restore item action to accommodate this in a backward compatible way. So for maintainers, I would ask that you read over this and make sure it makes sense and it fits. And I guess for the rest of the folks, do the same. And see, I know there's a couple, I see Dylan from Red Hat. I know this is a big thing for OpenShift, but I can see it generally fitting in with the rest of Velero.
Yeah, I did just poke Scott to see if he was available to join the call, but I do know that this conversation actually started a while ago, if I remember correctly, around the CRs and CRD stuff. And then we saw some other use cases where, I mean, this is a little OpenShift specific, but I think this is probably just a general problem if you have custom resources that have their own specific logic for how they get into a ready state. But we have a plugin that its sole purpose is populating the registry with image data. So if you have OpenShift installed and you have a Docker registry running on the cluster, then before we can actually go and recreate all of the image stream resources, which again, they're OpenShift custom resources, but they depend heavily on these images already being pre-populated in the registry. So that is kind of the driving force for this, but I'm unsure if Scott thought of a few other use cases or not in his head. I've only been briefed slightly on this design, so
Sure.
I had to kind of read through it directly myself.
Yeah, and there's a link to this out to an issue where Scott and I had a back and forth for a while. It was kind of asynchronous. I think if I remember right, it stemmed out of there was a race condition in Velero where we submitted to create a custom resource definition, and then sometimes it wouldn't quite be ready to consume until Kubernetes did some validation, and then we could get into a state where that validation wasn't done, but Velero was submitting the custom resources, and so they wouldn't actually get restored because Kubernetes didn't know it was a valid definition yet. So we put in some wait logic, and kind of this grew out of that because I think the intent was, hey, yeah, we've got that logic waiting for making custom resource definitions, but what if the CRs themselves have dependencies? And I think I could see scenarios where arbitrary custom resources might have this kind of logic, not just OpenShift. But I just wanted to bring this up and highlight it because I know Scott's been waiting for a while to get feedback on this. So at the very least, if folks could take a look at it. And I didn't tell him I was bringing it up today, so understandable that he's not on.
Yeah, I'll make him aware that this is brought up, and hopefully he can sync back up with you.
Awesome. Yeah, and we can bring it back up next week too.
All right. Does anyone else have any other discussion topics that you want to bring up today?
I am curious about 2980, if you can go into a little bit more detail there, Bridget. Is this, so if I was reading your last comment correctly, is this when the backup tarball is non-existent?
Yeah, so if the,
Okay.
yeah, so I think if the backup tarball is non-existent, or if the entire directory associated with the backup has been removed. So what happens is it tries, there's a download, tries to download that in order to perform the delete item actions, even if there are no associated delete item actions for that particular backup. So I thought, oh, we can check for we can check for the case where there aren't any delete item actions associated with this backup, and then skip the download in that case. But then that kind of raised another question in my head. Raised another question of what the behavior should be in the case where there aren't, there are associated delete item actions, but the resources have been removed.
Okay. So yeah. Yeah, so this sounds like basically in this scenario, if the objects and object storage that Velero relies on are not there, what is the failure modes? What are the failure modes when there aren't any delete item actions?
What are the failure modes whenever there are delete item actions? Because I think the previous behavior was, before delete item actions was introduced, was that if the resources weren't there, it would just continue through and eventually delete anything that was there, and then also delete the backup resource on the cluster. But now it gets stuck in deleting
right, okay,
with the error message saying that it can't download the backup. It's been reported. It was reported on this issue, and I think it came up on the Slack as well. So
okay,
channel. So that was why it was kind of.
So we put this in for the vSphere plugin, and I think orphaned objects are, acceptable. It's like in the current setup, we have the, what is it, the snapshots.json file, the volume snapshots.json file. If that gets lost, we would not call the volume snapshotters to delete, correct?
Right.
That's basically the same behavior.
Yeah. Like this to me, I need to read the issue more generally, but it sounds to me like someone went around Velero and cleaned out the object store and then tried to do a Velero delete, because if Velero was managing the object storage itself, it should clean up everything in an orderly fashion. But since we can't realistically lock people out of that, I think, yeah, we need to put in we need to put at least a graceful failure mode in here.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes
Things
sense.
will happen. I mean, especially with like on-prem object storage, you know,
Yeah.
you have a good chance of losing objects. And honestly, you know, having worked on real object stores at cloud scale, we actually don't know what's been lost.
Yeah. Okay. So it sounds like we just need better error checking and logging. All right. That makes sense. I wasn't sure if I was just misunderstanding, or if there were other resources. But it sounds like these folks had DeleteItemAction plugins installed and were missing the tarball.
I'm reading it as the code simply fails there when it tries to read the tarball, because
Yes.
does it always do that?
Oh, okay.
It always
fails right now.
attempts to download the tarball regardless of whether they're DeleteItemActions or not.
Right. I remember putting that in, but okay. But you were just saying you were thinking about the failure cases.
Yes.
Okay, got it. Yep, because I remember trying to fetch it regardless of whether they were there or not, but because that, I think that was the original behavior. But okay, I get, yeah, it makes sense that we would move on if there are none, just go back to the old behavior. And if there are some, we log it and say, hey, you had DeleteItemActions, but we can't get the tarball. So we have no idea what to do. We can't process this stuff without the tarball. So, okay, yeah, that definitely seems like a 152 bug fix to me.
Cool. Thanks.
All right. Anything else anyone wants to cover for today? All right, then we'll dive into the community contributions. Nolan?
Yeah, let me pull up that list. So first we have Scott Seago from Red Hat. He updated some behavior in our CRD handling that came with one bug fix. We actually introduced a regression, which is one of the reasons we're really looking at EDE testing this release. But basically in fixing some bugs around our version backups for CRDs, we introduced some regression in the CRD weighting that we mentioned before. And Scott tracked this down and fixed it. So this fix will be coming out in 152. This has been a little bit of a whack-a-mole in getting the proper CRD resource names in the code. So thank you to Scott for tracking this down and making sure we had the correct strings. I think the rest are Helm. So let's see here. We have, I am not sure how to pronounce this. SV Kua. This updates our Helm chart to be on the latest version of Velero. So thank you for updating that and making sure our users get the latest version no matter what they install with. After that, I think we had from it looks like X Unholy or Michael Fernero. This fixes a bug with Velero workload identity. Looks like it just updates the annotations. Excuse me. And then finally, we have, let's take a look at this. We've got something from Narav Chotai for updating. This is basically updating how we quote some of the rustic daemon set and deployment YAML. So thank you for cleaning that up. And yeah, hopefully this week we will burn down through the open PRs and get a much longer list here.
Awesome. And with that, that's the end of the show for today. So have a fantastic rest of the week, everyone. Please join us for the office hours on Thursday with Bridget here. And we'll see you all next week as well on the next community meeting. Have a good one, folks. Bye.
Bye, everyone.